What is going on? Your favorite games are gonna disappear forever! That is what is going on. Find out the who, what, when, and why only on today's episode of... Well, what do we have here? A little birdie, or rather the Video Game History Foundation, in cahoots with the Software Preservation Network, has chirped up to tell us that 87% of classic video games released in the good old US of A are critically endangered. Now, isn't that kind of fucked? Apparently, they did a little study, and it turns out that only a measly fraction of games released before 2010 are still in circulation. Take the Commodore 64 games, for instance. Only 4.5% of them are still purchasable on a modern digital storefront. And the Game Boy family? A whopping 5.8%. It's like a digital extinction event, folks. Now imagine this. You're dying to watch Titanic, but the only way to do so is to find a used VHS tape and maintain your own vintage equipment. Sounds absurd, right? But that's the reality we're living in with video games. A $180 billion industry, and we're letting the games and their history disappear faster than my interest in the latest Marvel show on Disney+. The study also looked at the possibility of granting further exemptions to libraries and organizations when it comes to preserving video games. Because, it's not enough to digitally preserve content. You also need to keep decades-old equipment in working order to play these games legally. It's like asking you to keep a dinosaur as a pet. Sure, it sounds cool, but where are you going to find a T-Rex these days? And here's the kicker. The piece of legislation that dictates how classic games are preserved and accessed. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, is due for a re-examination in 2024. I can already see the lawyers rubbing their hands in glee. The folks at the Video Game History Foundation are hopeful that this study will incite change. I hope this study wakes people up, says Frank Cifaldi, co-director of the foundation. Well, Frank, I hope so too. But then again, I also hope for a lot of things, like a world where I don't have to wait for the McRib to come back every 4 years. But seriously, this stuff is art, Atari's E.T. aside. This is history. This is our history. And to me, it is crazy that there is not a legal way to keep these games in circulation. Emulation is great, but it is not really legal. And if these games were still available at affordable prices digitally, it could be additional evergreen revenue for publishers. And I, for one, be happy to pay for the privilege of playing my favorite games from back in the day instead of having to hunt them down on ROM sites or get them pre-installed on some fucking AliExpress retro gaming handheld.